It does look like a lot of people here. You know, sometimes we get thousands of people out. And then sometimes the next day they'll say in the paper, yes, there was a very nice rally on such and such campus. Hundreds of people turned out. So I can see hundreds of people turned out tonight, and it is great. But our job is great too. It's a major task to change this country around because we have been drifting and drifting from the original intent of our Constitution for the last 100 years, long time before you were born, that the problem started. And tragically, you as a generation are inheriting it. The burden will fall on you to change things. But we have a great tradition. We have a great history. We know where we have come from. We know what we have to do. The blueprint has been laid out. So let's all of a sudden decide that we're not going to send anybody to Washington that doesn't believe and will follow the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah!
You know, in the announcements that Paul gave, he indicated that the First Amendment is very, very important to your campus, and obviously that is the case. Without the First Amendment, it is very difficult for us to get our message out. But I want to make sure the First Amendment is protected on the internet as well.
Yeah!
Every once in a while there'll be a court case and there will be some controversial language involved, and the courts are supposed to decide, is it constitutional to say these controversial things? Well, let me tell you, the First Amendment wasn't written so you can talk about the weather. It was written so we can talk about controversial things and even challenge our own government. And we live in an age where systematically our civil liberties have been under attack. And this is what we should be concerned about. The answer comes for so many of our problems by just understanding what liberty is all about. And liberty doesn't come because we belong to a group. You don't have liberty because you're a hyphenated American anyway. You have liberty because you have a right to your life, you have a right to your liberty, and you should have a right to keep all the fruits of your labor. But it's been going on for a good many years, but it's been especially bad in the last 10 years, the attack of civil liberties. During this administration, it hasn't been helpful, even though there were a few of us that had hoped that some of the protections of civil liberties and the avoidance of the federal government coming in and enforcing some drug laws and different things would be different. Unfortunately, it isn't. But if we need laws to restrain individuals in any way possible, they should be state laws, it shouldn't be the federal government, and it shouldn't be the DEA.
Yeah!
We know about the case of Daniel, one of the students here, of being arrested and thrown into prison and forgotten for 5 days. Ending up in an intensive care unit. And then it's done in the name of being a compassionate conservative. That's not compassion at all. So we need to understand what the real protection of liberty is all about. Now it's indicated that there may be a lawsuit coming out of this, and rightfully so. But it's always difficult when you're abused by a government to sue the government. Sometimes the government protects itself from lawsuits, especially the federal government. So we don't know exactly what will come from that. But I have a suggestion. You know, in a way, there should be justice for an abuse of liberty like this, but in some way, should the penalty be placed on the taxpayer? And you question that, well, not exactly, but who else is going to pay because they were working for the taxpayer? And there's some truth to that. But what I would like to do is make sure that any agent of government that abuses the rights of an individual, they personally are liable and should be sued. This, of course, is my suggestion, and I've introduced legislation dealing with the TSA. And it says this. It says that a TSA agent can't do anything to a stranger that you or I can't do, and if they do, they go to prison. Our government is actually out of control. It's moving in the wrong direction. It believes it has the authority and the moral responsibility to make individuals better people and that they can protect you against yourself. Governments are incapable of doing that. And if they assume that that is their right and a role, they cannot do it without the destruction of liberty. So first we have to cancel this notion out that the federal government, any government, can protect us against ourselves. In a free society, you should be allowed to lead your life as you choose, but suffer the consequences if you make a mistake, but also that the government can't come in and tell us what we do with our personal lifestyles. In the same sense, the government shouldn't be coming in and trying to not only improve individuals in their lifestyle, but trying to improve the economy by forcibly redistributing wealth and passing it on to the special interest groups. That's just as bad. What we should have, of course, is a government that's limited. We should ask the question, what should the role of government be? The founders of this country asked that, and they came down with a pretty precise conclusion. The purpose of a limited government should be for the protection of liberty, and no more complicated than that. Which means, of course, that we should have a strong national defense, we should have a judicial system, but it shouldn't be involved in the entitlement system, and it shouldn't be involved in believing that not only that we have a responsibility as a government to tell people how to run, but we certainly shouldn't be in the business of pretending that we can tell other countries what to do in their own country. You know, there's a recent case in the news today, the young man, Chin, the blind Chinese individual that was being harassed by his own government. His civil liberties obviously sounds like they were abused, and he goes into the American embassy, and now he was released, and it's a diplomatic controversy that is going on. And you will hear and see a lot of our politicians grabbing hold and grabbing the spotlight by saying, you know what we need to do? We need to crack down on those Chinese, and this is what they're doing. They're abusing their citizens, which may well be true. But how much authority do we have, and how much benefit do you think we have in lecturing and changing China at the same time what's happening to the civil liberties of individuals here in this country? That's where we have responsibility. Now we are a country that is known throughout the Arab world that we are a country that uses torture. Torture is not part of a free society. We also have endorsed now for nearly 10 years the concept of preemptive war. That is that we start the wars. That's wrong. The wars in this country are supposed to only be fought with a declaration of war and not preemptively. And also, we had something that was recently passed this year that I believe that most of us should agree that we should repeal it, and that is that provision in the Defense Appropriation Act. That idea that the federal government can use the Army to arrest American citizens. That's a violation of our civil liberties too. So I believe our responsibility as individuals in this country, as people in the government, and as a president, that we should try to set a standard of protection of all liberties, economic and political liberties. And if we do a good job, maybe other countries would do much better themselves, but we can't force it upon them. We cannot invade other countries and tell them, we are going to tell you how you live. We should set a standard, and hopefully they will want to emulate it. Our job here is at home. But we have a lot of things that we have to change, but the guideline, of course, is our Constitution. And Article 1, Section 8 outlines it pretty definitely on what those authorities are, explicitly approximately 20 items, depends on how you count, of ideas and principles that we're allowed to do and have the authority to do. And, of course, one is the declaration of war. And if that is the case, just think how many wars would have been fought since World War II? None. Just think of how much money we'd have saved. Think of how much richer we would be. Think about how much less debt we would have. Think how much less pervasive this whole notion of deficit spending would be. This country would be so much wealthier. In the very last 10 years, we added $4 trillion of debt for these wars that are going on, and we don't even know why we're there. We don't know when they're going to end, and we have no purpose there, and they cause more harm than good. So obey the Constitution, and we would have a lot less wars. Of course, the Constitution is very clear about the monetary issue. The monetary issue is very clearly stated that the Congress has the responsibility of providing a legal tender only silver and gold. No paper money, no central bank, no Federal Reserve System at all. That argument started immediately after the Constitution was written. Jefferson and Hamilton argued about it, and we had a first national bank, and Jefferson got rid of it. And then there was a second national bank, this attempt to have national banking and central banking. And then Andrew Jackson, another gold standard person, got rid of that bank. So let's look forward to the day, hopefully in the near future, we have a president that will get rid of this third national bank.
President Paul, President Paul, President Paul, President Paul, President Paul, President Paul.
That, I think we should, next year, 100 years, the Federal Reserve will be 100 years old in 2013. So I would say the appropriate celebration will be the repeal of the Federal Reserve Act next year. People ask me, well, who's going to do all those good things that the Federal Reserve does if you don't have a Federal Reserve? I said, yeah, like not bailing out the rich bankers and bailing out Wall Street and bailing out everybody. So, no, the central bank does not help the average person. But they claim they do. They claim they're protecting everybody. Yeah, they bail out the banks, they give free money to the banks, and they sit down it back to the government, and they make 2 or 3 points on this. At the same time, the people who save and want to take care of themselves and act responsibly, and they put their money in their bank and they have a CD, what do they get? 1%? And then the inflation rate might be 6%, and then they wonder why they're getting behind. And the American people are getting behind. The standard of living has dropped for most people in middle class, especially those on fixed incomes, in the last 10 years. And this is why people feel unhappy about the way things are going. And this is the reason I'm sure young people graduating from college, you come out with debt, you have trouble finding jobs, and the country is indebted, and the wars are endless, an entitlement system that entitles the well-connected to the benefits, and then the people who were supposed to be helped, like the people who were going to get these free houses and easy credit, they ended up losing their jobs and losing their houses. It's a system that doesn't work, and this is what has been confirmed in these last 5 years. And the reason why there's so much attention given to the freedom movement is the evidence is out on the table that welfareism, inflationism, and socialism does not work. What we need is freedom in this country and a lot less government. And of course, the consequence of the foreign policy has been great. It has not been great because of all the cost, but all the enemies that are made. They talk about, well, is the Al-Qaeda gone? Will there be any more Al-Qaeda? And the real story is that there's a lot of people out there that still dislike us, and they're going to dislike all of us, because now we've taken it upon ourselves to say the global war on terrorism is global, and we have the authority and the responsibility to look at every square inch of this country in the world, and that we have the capability to hitting any postage stamp spot to kill those bad people. And guess what? We're doing it, and guess what? Sometimes we miss. Sometimes the kids get killed, and sometimes innocent bystanders get killed. You don't build friendships that way. And believe me, we are more vulnerable. We are less secure because of that type of foreign policy than if we followed one of friendship and trade with countries. The student in China that I believe that diplomatic